the March 11th edition of Wi-Fi Streaming with Ben Miller. Welcome back, everybody. Here's the title page for you all. Just doing a little notice to the Twitter folks that I'm streaming right now. Give me just a moment. I am live on Twitch. So yeah, hopefully you all are having a good week. Enjoying the coronavirus epidemic and everything like that. I live in Los Angeles, so coronavirus is here in the state, apparently. Let's see here, talking MU-MIMO and OFDMA today. And yeah, this is the topic here, MU-MIMO and OFDMA. Let me get the tweet finished here. Not doing a great job, I know, to start the class, or I shouldn't say class. I guess I sort of do treat it like a learning type of thing here. There we go. The tweet is out. Yeah, so I do try to treat it like a little bit of a learning thing here, the weekly Twitch stream. But yeah, thank you for joining, everybody. Good to have you back again. It's coronavirus week, or I guess maybe the last couple of weeks have been coronavirus week. At least I don't know how it is in the rest of the country or in the rest of the world, but certainly here in California, there's definitely some concern. I apparently most of the concern is up in Northern California, kind of up in the Bay Area. But I live in Los Angeles, which is in the southern part of California. There's quite a bit of distance between the two. It's about the 5 or 6 hour drive, depending on traffic, depending on the specific area that you're going to and coming from, to get from Northern to Southern California and back. So it's a considerable distance. I don't know what it is, maybe somewhere between 300 and 400 miles, something like that. What would that kilometer conversion be? I always forget my miles to kilometer conversions. I think that would make it somewhere around 600 kilometers. Maybe I'm messing that up a little bit, but maybe a little bit less than 600 kilometers, maybe around that amount. But yeah, bottom line is, it is a significant distance between Northern and Southern California, at least to my knowledge. The northern part of the state is where we're getting the coronavirus situation, and but still, definitely all over the news and such here in the South. But yeah, glad that you all are joining this week. You know, to be honest with you, I was having a little bit of trouble. You can see here. For those of you that may be new to the stream, just a quick introduction here. I try to stream every week, and got my little kind of whiteboard-ish thing here. I try to stream every week at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We just had daylight savings time, so being the mildly anally retentive person that I am, the little PST is already starting to bother me. Technically, it's PDT. It's Pacific Daylight Savings Time right now. But I keep on getting emails from people saying PST, and like I said, it's kind of triggering the old the old anal retentiveness. But yeah, so 10 a.m. Pacific time each week. To be honest with you, I forgot exactly how the conversion over in the United Kingdom goes. So if I'm remembering correctly, I think we are at 5 p.m. UK time, 7 p.m. In Helsinki. Those are kind of my two signposts for time. And so yeah, every week at 10 a.m. Pacific time, I always get on the stream. I've been saying for well over a month that I'm gonna get started doing at least 2 streams a week. There's certain Twitch features that I would like to be able to use, like to be able to open up. And I need to do more than 1 stream a week to be able to do those. It's just I have not yet been able to get that done. Yet again, I'm going to say 3 p.m. Pacific time on Friday. So 3 p.m. Pacific time on Friday should be about 10 p.m. in the UK. That's a little bit late. That's midnight in Helsinki. If my time conversions are still correct here. And so keep an eye out for those of you in the United States, Friday afternoon or Friday evening. Those of you that are, outside of the United States, obviously it'd be a little bit later than that. Or I guess if you're in Asia or Australia, it'd be a little bit earlier than that on Saturday morning if I do the Friday night stream. But yeah, so once a week I try to do a Wi-Fi stream. And to be honest with you, I was having a hard time coming up with a topic. I was planning last night, and then when I woke up today, to sort of just wing it a little bit, just kind of go through some tips and things of that nature in Wireshark and in some other wireless troubleshooting and analysis tools. But and that's what I want to do on the Friday streams, is make the Friday streams a little bit less formal and just kind of go with the flow to explore some wireless tools and wireless troubleshooting techniques and things of that nature. But what ended up happening was this morning I was browsing Twitter just to kind of look at the news and such. And I noticed an article by someone who writes for a website called Fierce Wireless. Fierce Wireless mostly concentrates on the broadband side of wireless, so like on cellular wireless or service provider wireless. But I saw the tweet, and the tweet was about what was formerly known as the Spectrum Crunch. Let me see if I can share this with you all. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about Twitch. And by the way, before I get into that, if you don't already, follow me on Twitter. The Twitter handle is Ben Miller, @Ben Miller. Definitely appreciate. Looks like we might be having some issues with the quality of the Twitch stream right now. Hopefully that's not too severe of a thing. I'm getting a little notification indicating. Okay, all right. So hopefully, if you did get a hiccup in your Twitch stream, hopefully it's back. But yeah, so Ben Miller on Twitter, that's the Twitter handle. If you don't follow me already, definitely is appreciated. If you do decide to follow me, please do feel free to, send me a tweet, send me a message. Just, if you put @Ben Miller at the start of the tweet, I'll get the message. And let me know. I'm always looking to meet new wireless folks or folks who are interested in networking, technology, etc. And here on Twitch, of course, if you're at this page, then you probably know it's Ben_sniff Wi-Fi. If you're watching this video on YouTube, much appreciated if you subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're watching this on Twitch, if you kind of look directly above my head, there should be a little button to follow or subscribe. I haven't fully familiarized myself with Twitch yet, but if you click that little button to follow or subscribe, also definitely is appreciated. That's another thing that I need to be able to unlock some of the Twitch features that I want to unlock. Is I do need some more subscribers or followers. And so if you do follow, it's definitely appreciated. Other little notes here before I kind of get into it. The blog is sniffwifi.com. I haven't updated the blog in a couple of months. I got a couple of blog posts that are kind of in the old drafts folder, still need to be edited and polished up. I keep on saying I'm going to finish one again. I'm planning to finish one this week. It's sort of the life of a contractor. That's what I do. I've been working in Wi-Fi for a long time. I currently work as a contractor, primarily doing teaching and consulting and writing about wireless. And and so sometimes stuff comes up. I don't get to get over to the blog as often as I would like, and so that can sometimes kind of restrict my ability to blog in the way that I want to. But yeah, so that's a little bit about me. But so getting back to kind of what I was mentioning just a moment ago. So I'm on Twitter, and here I'll bring up the old Twitter page so I can lead you through kind of what I was looking at earlier on today. Got to share the Twitter page on my screen here. Give me just a moment. There we go. Well, actually, you can't see it yet. I just found it. All right, there we go. So yeah, this is my current Twitter page, and as I was perusing the Twitter page today, here's my Twitter page. I happened upon this one. You can see there, Tim Farrar. That's the person who was doing the tweet about it, and. You know, he brought up a topic that was sort of a hot topic in the wireless world several years ago. Even if you go back, not just several years ago, but 10 or 15 years ago. Topic primarily in the cellular world, but a little bit in the Wi-Fi world as well. The topic of the spectrum crunch. That's what kind of piqued my interest here. So last night, I was trying to figure out what I was going to talk about today, figuring I would just do kind of a little ad hoc day, browsing through some wireless tools to talk about how I use them and such, talk a little bit about kind of what it means when you see certain things in wireless tools. So that was kind of the original plan, and then I saw this tweet today. Here's kind of the full context of it. It started off with the it was fashionable a few years ago to deride the spectrum crunch, and you don't hear much of the talk about it being a hoax. But then the point of view that I had on it is kind of the same one that the guy Tim Farrar has on it, is basically that there was an idea that wireless networks would run out of spectrum, things would deteriorate, but then improved efficiency, specifically via a technology called MU-MIMO, was something that kind of really changed things in the wireless world. It made me think that was a good topic to talk about, because in Wi-Fi, we've also had MIMO. We've also had multiple input, multiple output technology for quite a while, and MIMO has really eased the spectrum crunch. This is, I don't know, maybe a sort of a dirty little secret, so to speak, of the enterprise Wi-Fi world, but we have so much spectrum today in the Wi-Fi world that, with very, very rare exceptions, you don't really need to put a lot of energy or spend a lot of money or spend a lot of time on wireless design, on kind of deciding precisely where you're going to put your wireless access points or whatever device it is that you're going to use to offer wireless access to people. You typically, for example, in a high school, you don't need to be like super careful. Here, I'll bring up the old whiteboard here to try to illustrate a little bit about what I'm talking about. Actually, I might have some floor plans here that I can share with you. Give me just a moment to. I thought I had one kind of available that I can use here. Where was that thing? But yeah, the idea here. Was this it? No, that was not it. let's see if I have a good floor plan that I'm allowed to share with everybody. Okay, I think I have one. So let me get this up on the screen here. Sorry, I'm taking a little bit of time here to get this up. Make this a little bit quicker here. There we go. Okay, beautiful. Well, you all can't see it yet, but I found the thing that I wanted to show. There we go. And maybe let's scale this down a tad. All right, so hopefully you can see that that's a floor plan, sort of showing an office space here. And yeah, the idea with the floor plans kind of traditionally is you'd want to be very, very careful when doing your design of your wireless access point. So like if this red dot is an access point, you might say, well, you know, we're going to try to move an access. We're going to try to place an access point here in this location of this office complex in this suite. And, you know, maybe we'll skip the next suite going clockwise and go one suite after, and to get coverage throughout the interior suites, we're going to put an access point in a certain location. And when we do a site survey for this access point in this particular location, you know, we might find out that that's not giving us optimal coverage in one of the hallways surrounding the suite. So we actually want to move it back closer to the hallway to give a little bit of better bleed into the hallway and better coverage into the hallway. And you kind of end up trying to be very, very precise about your design. But at least from what I have seen, especially over the last several years, as nowadays every single wireless client device supports MIMO, all of your modern wireless access points support MIMO, MIMO being multiple input, multiple output antenna technology. Nowadays, that gives us so much more available spectrum, plus the fact that wireless client devices support more channels. There's the typical wireless in the sort of predominant frequency band that's used in wireless, which is the 5 gigahertz frequency band. Most modern wireless client devices support up to 25 channels, meaning that a wireless client device will not experience interference even if it sees up to 25 access points within its range. So, you know, it's really made it so that design can be very, very simple. You can kind of just say here, okay, you know, we're going to put one access point in each suite. It doesn't particularly matter, you know, which part of the suite it's in. Maybe if we have a larger suite, we'll have 2 access points in that suite, you know, just to kind of be safe. And you can kind of dot your area in this manner. You can what we would traditionally view as over deploy. Let me whoops. Sorry, I wanted to move my head out of the way there, but I'm not doing a great job of it. Come on. There we go. But still not doing a great job of it. There we go. But yeah, so you know, nowadays we have so many channels available. MIMO has made things more spectrally efficient that you can kind of dot access points all over the place. You can do what in the past we might have looked at as an over deployment of access points. You know, nowadays we might not look at it that way. But yeah, you can do essentially what would have traditionally been considered a big time over deployment of access points and still end up with a perfectly viable solution. As long as you have fewer than 25 access points that are sort of hitting a given client device, you just don't have to worry that much about interference. There's not a significant spectrum crunch, as it used to be called. Let me move myself back to the right-hand side of the screen here. There's just not this significant spectrum crunch the way there once was. And so, that's when I saw the tweet there. Let me get the screen back where I had it. When I saw the tweet there, I thought, well, that's a topic that definitely applies to wireless. That it used to be, there was all this concern, we don't have enough wireless channels, there's going to be this big spectrum crunch, more and more Wi-Fi devices are going to show up. Another thing that kind of fed into that was this idea of end users having a high number of Wi-Fi client devices per person. There was this idea, well, you got to plan for, 3 client. Hold on just a second. Might be having don't know what is going on today with the technical difficulties. Not sure if that's coming from me or not. But yeah, there was this idea that you got that you got 2.5 or maybe 3 client devices per person on average. The idea, everybody's going to have a laptop, everybody's going to have a smartphone, lots of people are going to have tablets, lots of people are going to have, I have a non-smartwatch, but lots of people are going to have smartwatches that are going to be connected to the Wi-Fi network. And so we're going to have this spectrum crunch of so many client devices trying to all use the channels that we have available in Wi-Fi, that we're really going to be crunched. We're really going to, and I don't want to make it seem like the Wi-Fi spectrum crunch was ever viewed as quite the threat that the cellular spectrum crunch was. Clearly, Tim Farrar, the guy in the tweet here, was focusing more so on cellular. He's talking about VZ. For those of you that may not be familiar, VZ is Verizon. That's one of the big, I think it's the biggest, if I'm remembering correctly, cellular provider here in the United States. They might not be the biggest. They might be like the second or third biggest, but they're a very big a very big cellular provider here in the United States. And so this was definitely a topic that was viewed as something that was more so about the cellular world, but still was a topic for Wi-Fi. And it kind of made me think, and that's what this is all about here, is just there nowadays, the big focus is on Wi-Fi 6. That's kind of the new technology. Wi-Fi 6 is also known as 802.11ax. And Wi-Fi 6, or 802.11ax, is technology that is designed to improve performance. It's designed to make it so that the channel is more efficient, so that we can support more devices, or maybe theoretically, I don't know if OFDM is as much about higher speeds, but definitely, it's the HE amendment. It's the high efficiency amendment. If you here, I'll share with you another window here. Give me just a moment. If you want to ever kind of keep track of all this stuff, the 802.11 standard comes from a, give me just a moment here to bring this up. Yeah, so the 802.11 standard comes from an organization called the IEEE 802.11 Working Group. IEEE is the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, and 802.11 is the working group for Wi-Fi, for wireless LANs. And let me make the text a little bit bigger there so you can see that. And actually, let me just go to the main working group page here. I believe that's the right address for the working group page. Or, there we go, yeah. So yeah, IEEE, that's the, and here I'll post this link in the chat area for those of you that are live on Twitch. That way you can kind of see the link here. For those of you that are watching on YouTube, what I'll do is I'll post this link in the PowerPoint that I'm going through, so that way you can see that once we get back to the PowerPoints. Yeah, and Slim mentions a really a point about design. I'll get to that point, Slim, in just a moment here. But yeah, with the if you want to kind of keep track of Wi-Fi 6, and if you want to try to keep track of the other 802.11 developments, 802.11 standards and such, you can go to this IEEE website for the 802.11 working group. Again, IEEE is the organization. That's the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. IEEE does a number of different things in the networking world, including things like making the Ethernet standard, making security standards, making all sorts of different things having to do with technology and networking and security. That's all done with the or by the IEEE. And IEEE 802.11 is Wi-Fi. So essentially, if you see IEEE with the 802, that means network-based. So it's something having to do with networking. If you see an 802, that's because the IEEE's first networking standard was released in February of 1980. So February is the second month. 1980 is obviously the 80. So anything 802 is an IEEE networking standard. And then the various IEEE networking standards get numbers after them for different things. The .11 number is for wireless LANs, is for Wi-Fi. So in any case, if you do decide to explore the IEEE website, and again, I posted the link up there, the place that I typically go to get up-to-date information is this little timelines link. Hopefully you can see that that's highlighted there, the timelines link. When I click on timelines, it shows me what's in development, what has been approved, etc. Let's make the text a little bit bigger so you can see this here. So at the top is all stuff that's in process. This is stuff that's not expected to be available for a few years. So we have a new throughput standard coming, 802.11 BE, but let's see here. It's not expected to be approved until 2024. Most likely that would mean sometime in 2023, we would start to get kind of a finalized standard, something that we can start deploying, but maybe 2024 before we get a finalized standard. And those dates change sometimes. Those dates don't always stay the same. So this is all stuff that the IEEE 802.11 working group is working on, is kind of in process. And then below, we see what is published. This is all the stuff that's a finalized standard. This is all the stuff that's not going to change. So general link connections, discovering access points before connecting to them, millimeter wave for the Chinese market. 802.11 is 802.11 AG. Whoops. Let me get back to where I was. And for one of the in process, so again, notice this is above published. Everything below published is published. Everything above published is still in process. Above that, we have 802.11ax. 802.11ax is Wi-Fi 6. Wi-Fi 5 is 802.11 AC. Where's that guy? There we go. 802.11 AC is Wi-Fi 5. Wi-Fi 4 is 802.11n. That goes all the way back to 2009. There it is, 802.11n. And there's even, obviously, 3 other Wi-Fi standards before Wi-Fi 4. But if you notice here with Wi-Fi 6, with 802.11ax, the name for it is high efficiency. So, with the talk about efficiency in that tweet talk, granted, it's a tweet about the cellular world. It's a little bit about MIMO. But with the talk about MIMO improving efficiency, and with the fact that OFDMA is kind of the primary technology of 802.11ax also improving efficiency, I thought that would be an interesting idea to talk about this week. Now, in the chat there, Slim makes a good point. He works in the building with lots of cinder block walls, lots of places where he's getting below a -70 RSSI. How does AP placement, how does design not matter? And again, the whole point of that is just that, look, number one, there are exceptions to every rule. So I obviously have not been in the building where Slim works, but there sometimes are cases where in a given building, you only have, limited areas where you're allowed to mount access points, or there's also cases where you're under severe budget constraints, where you don't have the ability to fit a certain number of wireless access points in a budget. And so, there can definitely be times where you don't have the ability to as I was calling it, over deploy. But yeah, the idea there is that if you have it in the budget, you're probably going to be better off having a few more access points and just placing them, one per room, or placing them a certain distance apart from one another, rather than spending time and resources on what we would traditionally call a design. And one of the reasons is exactly what Slim is saying there, is that when you do a traditional design, when you start to, try to place your access points very carefully on your floor plan, a lot of times you may end up with low signal areas that you can't really fix without having to add a new access point. It's, if I bring back my little floor plan here, sorry, give me just a moment. There we go. If I bring back my floor plan here, if I'm trying to be very, very careful with the design, if I'm trying to avoid over deploying access points, maybe a lot of these access points are gone. Maybe I think that the walls are going to be thin enough for me to be able to get coverage everywhere. But maybe I find in one area or another that I don't really have great coverage where I was hoping for. Maybe in this area, in this suite here. Whoops, sorry about that. Maybe in this area, in this suite, maybe the walls here are a little bit thicker than I was expecting. Maybe the signal is not bleeding as strongly into the suite, and I'm just not getting good coverage. I'm somewhere below -70 dBm. And here's another side note about that. Depending on your environment, -70 is not always a problem. -75 is not always a problem. I would say industry best practice nowadays is to try to have your minimum signal strength, your minimum RSSI, up at the level of maybe -65 dBm, maybe a little bit below that. Maybe you go down to -66, -67 dBm. But I would say industry best practice is to try to keep your minimum signal strength right around -65 dBm. And these are negative numbers, so -70 is a lower number than -65. -75 is even lower than that. But what I'm saying is, in a lot of cases, depending on the client device, depending on the application you're trying to use, depending on the access points that are servicing your infrastructure, looks like I might have a little issue here again. Gosh, I do not know why I'm getting some issues today with performance. Apologies for that. I'll have to go back and see if there's anything with the old internet connection that might need to be improved. But yeah, so in any case, I would say that, depending on your environment, -70 may not be that bad of a thing. Like, for example, now look, for several years, really, the only type of infrastructure that I was working with hands-on was Cisco. In the 2010s, in the previous decade, for a period of, I would say, close to 5 years in the mid to late 2010s, all I was working with was Cisco. And one of the things I noticed about Cisco is their wireless access points are very, very stubborn when it comes to data rates, when it comes to the lowering specifically of data rates. So let me bring up this floor plan, but with a slightly, the same floor plan, but just with a slightly different application. And this other application will allow me to draw on it a little bit more. Give me just a moment to, there we go. Okay. So yeah, take me just a moment to get this back up. So same floor plan that we were just looking at here. But now I basically, my bad, I opened up the floor plan in the wrong application to allow for me to draw on it. But yeah, so in the case of Cisco access points, and look, I haven't worked on a Cisco deployment since, what would have been, probably almost 18 months ago, maybe a little bit over a year and a half ago. So things may have changed. I would be very surprised if things change. Usually the algorithms that access points use to determine how they're going to shift data rates don't change that dramatically within 18 months, but it's always possible. You know, it's, again, since I just haven't used, I haven't done a consulting job where I've been on a Cisco network in a long time. Or in a relatively long time. Like I said, it's been a little bit less than 18 months, but around 18 months. So because of that, the what I noticed with Cisco access points is those access points, if you got beyond kind of the level where you were getting a negative 65 dBm signal strength, negative 65 dBm RSSI, that there would be performance degradation, because what the access point would try to do, this is kind of what I noticed working with these Cisco access points, what the access point would try to do is it would try to continue sending data out to client devices at very high data rates. So even though the client device was kind of beyond this negative 65 dBm boundary, even though my little smartphone or my little laptop here, even though my smartphone or my laptop or whatever other device I was using was having a relatively low signal strength, lower than negative 65 dBm, the Cisco access point would continue trying to use this high rate over and over and over again. And the end result of trying to use that high rate would be failed transmissions. So it's like over and over again, the Cisco access point would send high rate data, send high rate data, send high rate data. And over again, that high rate data would fail. Maybe after 2 or 3 attempts, finally we would get successful high rate data. Finally, let's say on this 3rd or 4th attempt, the data is successful and my client device receives a packet, a little frame that was transmitted at a very high data rate. But, the performance had been degraded. There had been enough collisions where the end user experience was compromised. Now, for about a year, from fall of 2000, autumn of 2018 to autumn of 2019, I was working at a university. I was working at USC, and that is an Aruba shop. And one of the things I noticed working with Aruba day to day, working with Aruba access points day to day, is they did not have this problem. We had a number of areas on campus where, for whatever reason, sometimes for thriftiness, sometimes when the building was originally designed, the choice was made to try to kind of limit the number of access points so that we, lower the cost, not having to buy as many access points, lowering the cost in terms of not having to, spend as much time or spend as much money on contractors to mount the access points. Also the time spent managing the access points. But, to try to keep costs down and to try to keep the amount of time down for managing the wireless LAN, the choice was made to mount very, very few access points per square foot in many of the buildings at USC. So because of that, we had a number of areas where client devices would routinely be connected below -65, sometimes below -70, sometimes even below -75 dBm. So, and also at USC, we had some configuration issues. Our access point transmit power was set very, very, very low. It was set, if I remember, we were using air match. So we were using the protocol that allows the transmit power to be automatically increased and decreased. But if I remember correctly, I think the limit we had was maybe 9 decibels on the high side. And on the low side, I think 3 decibels. I think that was our range, was 3 to 9 or maybe 6 to 9 decibels in the 5 gigahertz frequency band. And so we had areas where we had a low number of access points. We had a very, very low transmit power configured on the access points. And so we would have a lot of areas that were below this -65 dBm threshold. But what I noticed was with the Aruba system, we still, in many cases, had stable connectivity. If you would talk to the professors, the researchers, the students, whoever it was that was using the Wi-Fi in a given area where there was low signal, in many, many cases, in fact, in the majority of cases, I would say, they wouldn't report any problems. They would say, oh, no, Wi-Fi seems good. I can do what I want to do on Wi-Fi, whether it's work-related stuff, whether it's just kind of web surfing or social media or Netflixing or what have you. And so we wouldn't have big complaints. And after doing some packet captures, what I noticed was Aruba access points did not have this same problem with maintaining high rates. If there was a client way the heck out here, the access point would go down to a lower rate to be able to reach the client more efficiently, to make it so on the first attempt, the data would be successful. So, I haven't done work at USC since last fall. It was just a 1 year, time that I was there. So I haven't done work at USC since last fall. So maybe I'm out of date on the Aruba stuff. I haven't worked on the Cisco stuff in maybe a little bit less than 18 months. So I may be a little bit out of date on that. So it's always possible things have changed. But I would say that, for example, having a signal strength of -70 dBm doesn't have to be a death sentence depending on the infrastructure and depending on the client device you're using. Also, different client devices may be more or less resilient. One of the things we were lucky about at USC is almost everybody uses Apple products. It's almost all iPhones among the students. There's some faculty and researchers that don't use iPhones, but almost every student had an iPhone as their smartphone. Almost every student had a Mac laptop as their laptop. Most of the professors, most of the researchers also were Mac people. So that did make things a lot easier. I find with Macs, they tend to be relatively resilient, even if the signal strength gets a little bit on the low side there. But let's say that's not the case. To address Slim's point, let's say you do have problems when your client devices are below -70 dBm. That's a big reason why I like what you might traditionally call over deployment idea. If you don't have to spend a ton of time on design or anything like that. You can basically just say, look, we're going to put an access point in every room. Nowadays, we have 25 channels that client devices can use in the 5 gigahertz band. So unless we have more than 25 access points that are all seen by one client, so unless we run into a situation where this one client up here is able to hear 25 access points, is able to hear 25 access points from all over the building, all floors of the building. Unless that number gets above 25, we're not going to have a big spectrum crunch. We're not going to have big interference problems. Now, look, if you have budgetary limitations, then that's a little bit of a different story. Then doing some degree of wireless design is definitely recommended. If you're told, look, for this building, we're not going to install, whatever the number of offices is. Let's say there's 17 offices on this floor. So we're not going to install 20 access points to cover the 17 offices on this floor. We want you to get it down to 5 access points installed on this floor. Then you got to be a little bit more careful with your design. You got to sort of try to choose appropriately where you're going to place your access points. So I don't mean to say there's no place for design, but I would say that if you have the option to what I like to call over deploy and then not really have to deal with much design, I would say that's preferable if you can. Rather than saying, well, I'm going to try to choose the best 12 locations for access points here, I would say in most cases, you're probably better off just over deploying it. Because here's the other thing about over deployment. Now, it's a little bit tricky because you gotta have whoever it is that's managing and configuring your wireless LAN infrastructure to understand how this stuff works and understand that access point radios can be disabled. But it's always better to have more access points than fewer because you can disable access point radios. If you find, that there are areas where more than 25 access points are reaching one client, then, you have the ability to just say, all right, we're going to disable a few of these radios. We're going to turn some of these access points into intrusion detection sensors, at least temporarily. One of the other reasons why I really have grown to like the over deployment model, because it's a little bit of a change from what my opinion has been in the past. If you would have talked to me 10 years ago or so, I would have said, yeah, make sure you do a design. Design's really important. Even less than 10 years ago, even as recently as, let's say, 6 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, I would have said, yeah, make sure you spend your time on design. Design is very, very important. But it's just one of the things that I noticed is it was so frustrating, not just at USC, but also at other projects that I've worked, when the environment changes or the types of devices change or the applications that users want to run change, and you're kind of stuck here with this bespoke, custom Wi-Fi design. It's like you do this bespoke, this custom Wi-Fi design saying, okay, based on our expectations currently of client devices, of the physical environment, of the applications people are running, based on our current or based on our expectations for what's going to be current, we want the AP exactly here, and we want the AP exactly here, and we want the AP exactly here. And then, several months later or several years later, you get complaints and you say, well, now things have changed. The number of devices being used has changed, or the types of devices have changed, or the applications people want to run have changed, or whatever the case is, or maybe the physical environment's changed. Maybe someone decided to add another wall here to split one of these suites in two, or whatever it is, or take down a wall to make a really big suite. So something has changed, and then you're kind of stuck. You're kind of having to go back and say, all right, now we want to go back and redesign everything again and add new access points or move these access points. I've just found it's a more durable deployment, a more durable installation if you just kind of over deploy from the start. If you just kind of say from the start, we're going to, put more access points in than we need. That's at least what I've found. But yeah, so getting back to it. So my point is that I don't exactly feel like we have a big spectrum crunch today. And I kind of in agreement with that tweet that I was showing you earlier on. But I thought it was a good opportunity to talk about two of the technologies that are kind of designed to solve a potential spectrum crunch. And by the way, there's that website that I was talking about before for those of you that might be watching on YouTube. Since you don't have the chat area that we have here on Twitch, or if you're watching the Twitch archive for that matter, if you want to look at those Wi-Fi technologies, the 802.11 working group, you can view it right there, grouper.ieee.org/ whoops, did I just lose that? Give me just a moment to make sure I get that back up. Might have to, there we go. All right, sorry about that. But yeah, so that's the website there. But yeah, so whoops. There we go. But yeah, what I wanted to talk about here was, the reason why that little Twitter exchange kind of made me want to talk about this is that both OFDMA and MIMO, multiple input, multiple output, are technologies that are designed to improve performance, that are designed to improve efficiency. And so I just want to talk a little bit about what the similarities are, what the differences are between MIMO and OFDMA. And you can see it right here on the screen. I don't know if you necessarily need me to read it for you or anything like that, but MU-MIMO and OFDMA, these are two things that are both improving performance. They are both allowing multiple clients to use the channel at the same time. They are both already a big part of cellular wireless. And, here's kind of the reality of the situation. Neither one is something where we really know the level of improvement we're going to get in the real world of Wi-Fi. We know that both of these things work in the lab. We know that MIMO and OFDMA are both going to improve our results in the lab, are both going to either allow more client devices to connect or give us higher throughput or whatever the case may be. If you have the clients supporting those technologies, the access points supporting those technologies, and you're in some type of controlled environment, if you're in some type of lab-like environment. So we know that we have these things in sort of a lab type environment, and it looks like I had a little flicker here. Let me just get that back up so that I can do, I don't know what's going on here with my technology situation in the home, but yeah, my wireless connection to my second screen, which is kind of essential for me to be able to do the whiteboard type stuff, that connection kind of keeps flickering on and off. And then on my viewing screen, the screen I use to kind of make sure that the Twitch show is working correctly, that also keeps buffering. Not all the time, but occasionally buffering. And so, yeah, my apologies for the tech stuff this week. I'll have to look into it and try to figure out exactly what the heck is going on, and if there's a way that I can kind of fix that for next week. But yeah, so again, a big thing about it is, MU-MIMO, I should say, and OFDMA are kind of designed to do similar things, but neither one of them has been real big for Wi-Fi yet. So when I talk about this stuff, it is largely academic. It is largely, in theory, here's what MIMO or MU-MIMO can do for you. MIMO is pretty widely deployed, but MU-MIMO is not something that we've seen noticeable real world gains from yet in Wi-Fi. So here's what could happen with MU-MIMO. Here's what could happen with OFDMA. That's kind of more so the focus of what I'm talking about here. And to give you a little note here on MIMO and MU-MIMO to give you the background here. So the reason why I'm comparing MU-MIMO to OFDMA is because both OFDMA and MU-MIMO allow multiple client devices to access a given channel simultaneously. So that's where those two technologies are similar. And just to be clear on that, MIMO is available in 802.11n, 802.11ac, and 802.11ax. So that is Wi-Fi 4, 5, and 6 respectively. 4 is N, 5 is 802.11ac, Wi-Fi 6 is 802.11ax. MU-MIMO is only available in 802.11 AC and AX. So that would be Wi-Fi 5 and 6. So just a little note there about the kind of differences between the two. MU-MIMO and MU-MIMO and MIMO are available in different technologies. They're not both available in all of the same technologies there. So again, you know, to give you the background here on what's happening, and again, it looks like I might have run into a bit of a technical issue. So okay, it looks like not a major technical issue. The last thing that was missing was just that MU-MIMO is 802.11 AC and AX, which is Wi-Fi 5 and 6. And again, that applies to MU-MIMO. So again, as far as these, how these various technologies work, MIMO, MU-MIMO, OFDMA. MIMO is a technology that's allowing multiple radio chains to use a single channel simultaneously. By allowing multiple radio chains to use a single channel simultaneously, you can get multiple frames of data or multiple packets of data, if you want to call them that, across the same channel simultaneously. So if I have my access point that supports MIMO, and if I have my laptop here that supports MIMO, and if this access point is transmitting data to my laptop on channel number 149, with MIMO, let's say, for example, that my laptop is a 2-stream MIMO device. If my access point supports MIMO, if my access point supports at least 2 streams of MIMO, what that means is over this single channel, over channel number 149, my access point can have 2 packets of data. We'll call these data 1 and data 2. And those 2 packets of data can traverse the wireless channel simultaneously. So at the exact same time, over the exact same frequencies, you know, that's what we're talking about when we talk about a channel. A channel is just a range of frequencies. So at the exact same time, over the exact same frequencies, 2 packets of data, 2 frames of data are being transmitted at once. With MU-MIMO, the difference here with MU-MIMO is that instead of allowing multiple frames of data to go to one client device, with MU-MIMO, it allows those multiple frames of data to go to multiple client devices. And in theory, the reason why this is so valuable is because most Wi-Fi client devices are 2-stream MIMO, meaning they can only support receiving or transmitting 2 packets of data at one time. Most wireless access points nowadays are 4-stream or perhaps even more than 4-stream MIMO. So that way, a wireless access point could send 2 packets of data to one client, 2 packets of data to another client, all at the same time, all on the same channel. You know, I'll use the color purple for packet of data number 3 and packet of data number 4. And so those 2 packets of data, packet of data 3, packet of data 4, those 2 packets of data are still going simultaneously. They're still going at the same time across the same frequencies, across channel number 149. But those 2 packets of data are going to 2 different clients. This will be my little client 2. So that's the idea. I might have drawn that a little bit too low there. My head might be blocking some of it. Apologies for that. But that's the big idea with MU-MIMO, is you have 2 clients being able to use the same channel at the same time, and it just improves the overall efficiency of your network. With OFDMA, it's a little bit different. With OFDMA, the idea is to have different frequencies over the same channel for different clients. That's the idea with OFDMA. So I have my access point here. My access point is communicating with a client device here. They're using channel number 149, and let's say they're using a 20 megahertz wide channel 149. 20 megahertz is the standard Wi-Fi channel width. You can also use wider channels in Wi-Fi. In fact, that's hopefully going to be one of the big benefits of using OFDMA, of using Wi-Fi 6, that it will allow the 40 megahertz or the 80 megahertz wide channels to be more appropriate, especially in higher density environments. Today, usually if you have a higher density Wi-Fi environment, you tend to avoid channel number 40 or, a 40 megahertz wide channel or an 80 megahertz wide channel. It can, it can cause a little bit of congestion. It can just harm the overall performance of the network. If every single time a client device is transmitting or receiving, it's using this huge swath of frequencies in a very congested environment, in a very, very crowded environment. So with OFDMA, however, it makes it so that 20 megahertz wide channel can kind of be split up. Maybe this client device will only use 2 megahertz of the channel. And maybe there will be another transmission to another client device that's using 8 megahertz of the channel. And, maybe there's another transmission to another client device that's using, let's see how much would be left, 4 megahertz of the channel. And then, another one with the last 2 megahertz of the channel. It's not quite as efficient with OFDMA in terms of using the full 20 megahertz, because you're dividing the 20 megahertz up into smaller spaces. You do lose a little bit, so you can't go to the full 20 megahertz. Yeah, Slim, sorry, I just saw that. I'll get to that in just a moment. So there are some similar concepts here with OFDMA and MU-MIMO. We still have different clients. Those different clients are still using the same channel. They're still doing it simultaneously. It's just a different way of splitting up the channel. Instead of saying, we're going to allow you clients to use the channel simultaneously by using different radio chains, we're saying we're going to allow different clients to use the channel simultaneously by dividing up the channel. Instead of having this full 20 megahertz available for every device, it'll be half of it for one, a quarter of it for another, an eighth of it for two others. We're going to divide this channel up into different slices, into different pieces for each client device. So we'll still have the same principle of the access point being able to transmit data to 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even more than that, different client devices, but it's just being done in a little bit different way. We're using a narrower channel rather than using a wider channel. That's kind of the key thing there. And Slim asked the question about radio chains being the same thing as lanes. That's definitely one good way to look at it, is that radio chains are the same thing as lanes. The way that the term that I use for it, what I always use to describe a radio chain, is I call a radio chain essentially a virtual channel. So, for example, channel number 149 is 5.745 gigahertz as the center of the channel. And then since, the standard Wi-Fi channel width is 20 megahertz wide, that means it would go 10 megahertz below 5.745, 10 megahertz above 5.745. So that would mean it's 5.735 to 5.755 gigahertz. Because the channel is 20 megahertz wide, I'm using units of gigahertz. 1,000 megahertz is equal to 1 gigahertz. So that's why I'm moving the decimal over a few places, because, a change in 0.01 gigahertz is the same thing as a change in 10 megahertz. Again, because of just the relationship between mega and giga. So in any case here, over this channel, over channel 149, over this range of frequencies between 5.735 and 5.755 gigahertz, that's one physical channel. And then each additional radio chain, the way I look at it is, it's an extra virtual channel. So, you know, you have one packet of data, and then if you have two Stream-MIMO, you have a second packet of data. One of the packets is using what I like to call the physical channel. The other packet is using the virtual channel. Lanes is another way to describe it. It may be a better way to describe it, where if you have two Stream-MIMO, you have two lanes of traffic that can operate simultaneously. For Stream-MIMO, 4 lanes of traffic that can operate simultaneously. So yeah, absolutely, that's another, you know, good way to kind of describe it there. But yeah, that's kind of the idea there. Is if I'm using MU-MIMO, then one client device may have 2 lanes of traffic in this range, in the 5.735 to 5.755 range, and the other client may have another 2 lanes of traffic in the 5.735 to 5.755 lane. If I'm using OFDMA, it's going to be a little bit different. Channel 149 may still be 5.735 to 5.755 gigahertz, but instead of allowing multiple devices to use the entire channel, pieces of that channel are allocated to different devices. Maybe 5.735, whoops. Still having technical issues. Apologies for that, everybody. Not exactly sure what is happening on my network right now. Darn it. Might have lost the whiteboard. It might be deed. Let's see if this is working. Okay, give me a second to see if that is up. Sorry about the little delay, everybody. I realize not a ideal situation here. And actually, it looks like the whole stream may be frozen. Okay. Yeah, apologies for that. I think this is getting it back up. Yes, okay. Tech issues. But yeah, so the idea here is I have my access point. I have multiple client devices, laptops, tablets, etc. Multiple client devices, all operating on channel number 149, 5.735 to 5.755 gigahertz. Darn it all. Looks like I lost it again. All right, this will be my last whiteboard attempt here. So yeah, the idea is there's my access point. I have multiple little client devices connected to this access point. I'm using channel 149, so that means 5.735 gigahertz to 5.755 gigahertz. That's kind of the idea there. And what might happen is one client device might use 5.736 to 5.744. And then the next client might use 5.746. Notice there's little gaps in there. There's little gaps in there because when you divide up a channel into multiple little sub-channels and have simultaneous transmissions across those sub-channels, there has to be a little bit of extra frequency space given between the subchannels to avoid interference, to avoid kind of bleed over and interference, to 5.748, let's say, and the next one might be 5.749 to 5.753. You know, that, and those might be the frequencies that are being used there. And if you want more detail about OFDMA, number one, you know, you can look on the YouTube channel. I actually probably should get the YouTube link put up there. I don't know my YouTube channel's link off the top of my head, but if you're watching this on YouTube, you can certainly look at other videos on this channel. I've talked a little bit about how OFDMA works in previous videos. Also, there's a very good blog on OFDMA. I'll share that blog with you shortly here if you want to get a little bit more detail. But basically, the way that the terminology used for OFDMA is resource units, or RUs. So this range of frequencies is actually going to be a certain number of RUs. You know, let's say X number of RUs, and this other one is going to be Y number of RUs, and this other one is going to be Z RUs. So there's going to be a certain range of resource units of RUs, how this the way this channel is divided up. And again, what we're talking about is dividing up the channel using OFDMA. And so that's kind of our big technological difference between the two, between MU-MIMO and OFDMA, between the stuff that we had with 802.11ac and with regular MIMO going all the way back to 802.11n, going all the way back to Wi-Fi 4. What we had was this MIMO technology, or this MU-MIMO technology, where the full wide channel would be used, but you would have, as Slim called it, different lanes on the same channel, or as I call it, different virtual channels, to allow multiple packets of data to use that entire wide channel at the same time. With OFDMA, it's a little bit different. The idea with OFDMA is using little pieces of the channel, little portions of the channel. That's what I'm trying to illustrate here, you know, using little parts of the channel. You know, here's our whole channel, 35 to 55, and it's like I'll use 36 to 44 with one, 46 to 48 with another, 49 to 53 with another. That's the idea with OFDMA. Yeah, and you know, Slim mentioning the idea of doing a live packet capture. I definitely want to get live packet captures done. The problem is I haven't figured out how to use the WLAN Pi yet. My computer has a wireless connection, and so I can't capture live. I can't capture live, you know, with my computer because otherwise I would lose the wireless connection. But I can show you archived captures, and so that's kind of the idea there. But yeah, again, if you want to get more details about OFDMA, let me just share this website with you, because I do think it's a really, really good blog. So yeah, let me share this with you here. Gosh, I always forget which one it is that I have here. Sorry, give me just a moment. Not that one. Not that one. You know, I'll just make it this one. But yeah, the blog is by a guy named German Rayen. And he's done a lot of blog posts on OFDMA, on Wi-Fi 6. You can see here the site. Hopefully that's clear up at the top of the screen. GermanRayen.com. GJERMUNDRAAEN. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. I might not be. But there's a bunch of good 802.11ax or Wi-Fi 6 you know, explanations in here. He also has packet capture set up, so he's able to do some packet captures and kind of show some of the some of the information there that he gets. Here's a little how to do a packet capture. I'm not a very good hacker, so I haven't been able to figure out the Jetson Nano yet. But yeah, he talks about some of the captures. So I certainly encourage people to explore this site to get additional info about OFDMA. Again, I've done old Twitch streams about OFDMA. I'm sure I'll revisit it in a little bit more detail in the future as well. I still have, I've blogged a little bit about OFDMA, but not much. So I need to blog a little bit more about it. But just, again, to kind of summarize it, it's kind of what I was talking about just recently there when I was using the whiteboard. And I'll bring that back up here. But yeah, to kind of summarize it, it's what I was talking about on the whiteboard here. And I have this little chart that I quickly whipped up this morning to kind of emphasize some of the things. The big difference there is with OFDMA, the way that we get multiple client devices on the same channel at the same time is by using narrower channel widths. With MU-MIMO, the way that we get multiple client devices on the same channel at the same time is by using multiple radio chains. So, we have the same channel, but essentially this is giving us multiple frames or multiple packets, whatever term you want to use. OFDMA is using narrower channel width. So, if we look at some of the pros and cons, and this is something, unfortunately, that I didn't get a chance to whip up this morning. I was hoping to get another chart here set up for you guys before the stream started. But if we were to talk about kind of some of the pros and cons here, with MU-MIMO, that is going to allow you to have more overall data than OFDMA would allow you to have. Because with OFDMA, we may have multiple packets going across the same channel at the same time to or from different client devices. But each one of those packets is using a narrower channel width. And by using a narrower channel width, that means we are getting a slower speed. We are getting a lower data rate for each one of those packets. So it's like in my example before, there were 3 client devices that were all using channel 149. That's great. We have 3 packets of data going across channel 149. With OFDMA, those 3 packets of data would each be using lower rates. With MU-MIMO, each of those packets of data would be using, if you want to call it, a full data rate. Each one of those packets of data would be using the entire channel number 149, the entire 20 megahertz. So with MU-MIMO, I have 3 packets of data at a normal rate. So I'm essentially like tripling the speed of my network. With OFDMA, I'm not tripling the speed of my network. If I have 3 packets of data at the same time on the channel, that means each packet is averaging 1/3 of the speed, or less than 1/3 of the speed, because of those little gaps between sub-channels, between divided channels. So OFDMA is not something that's giving me more overall data. MU-MIMO is giving me more overall data. OFDMA is not. So then the natural question is, why do I care about OFDMA? If OFDMA is not giving me more data, what's the benefit? By using narrower channels, a couple of the potential benefits are that you can have sort of less of a gap. Whoops. Looks like I had another little technical issue here. Hopefully be able to bring that back very quickly. Okay, good. This time it came back quickly. So with OFDMA, what the narrower channel means, and again, what I'm talking about now is the positives of being on a narrower channel. One thing the narrower channel means is less of what I'm calling a gap between frames. Not every application is optimized by having the highest possible speed, by having the highest possible throughput. For example, with a voice application or with a live streaming video application, it's optimized. You're better off having a consistent stream of data rather than a super high throughput. Like, if you ever do a packet capture on someone who's watching Netflix or watching YouTube, what you're going to see is an absolute flood of data come in to that person's Netflix device or YouTube device right at the start of the video, right at the start of the movie or TV show or YouTube video that someone's watching. There's just going to be this flood of data coming into the device. And so the device is going to sit there taking in all this data, rearrange, the YouTube application or the Netflix application is going to rearrange this data so that the data can then be shown by the application as a video stream, kind of one packet of data at a time to make this video stream happen. But with a live stream, with a live video application or with a audio application, with a phone call or something like that happens over Wi-Fi, you're not going to see, if you're doing a packet capture, you're not going to see just like this huge flood of data come in and then nothing come in after that. You're going to see a consistent stream of data. Each little packet is going to come in as the frame of video or as the audio is transmitted. And so with live streaming audio or live streaming video, it may be more important to kind of close the gap between frames than it is to just have a high amount of data. If I with let's say, YouTube, with YouTube, I get like tons and tons of data, lots and lots of data packets, but then nothing else. Once the YouTube video loads, I just watch the YouTube video, but there's no more data as I'm watching the YouTube video. If I'm doing FaceTime, if I'm doing some type of live video application or if I'm doing live audio application, there might be a little bit of data at the start to create a buffer, right? So that way, you don't get, the user doesn't notice any kind of buffering that's happening. But then after that kind of data is gathered for the buffering, then there's going to be a little bit of time between each data frame. But it's very, very important that this time stays short. You don't want to have it so that there's this long period of time and then the next data frame. And then a long period of time before you get the next data frame. If that happens, then you might get choppy video. You might get, what at least I was seeing earlier, where the Twitch stream seemed to have some buffering issues. The Twitch stream might have paused for some of you all. And so I would say that, for a live streaming application, it can be more important to have less of a gap between frames than it is to just have more total throughput. So that's one potential positive of the narrower channel. By allowing 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 8 times the number of devices to send or receive data frames simultaneously, even if those data frames are slower. Again, the narrower channel widths do make each individual frame slower. Even though those frames are slower, if there's less of a gap between frames, if you get one frame and then there's less of a gap between the time that a client device has the ability to transmit or receive the next frame, you might get an overall more enjoyable video, live streaming video or live audio experience for the user. And then the other big positive there of the narrower channel is the narrower channel also means less noise. What makes a Wi-Fi communication successful or a failure is SNR, or signal to noise ratio. That means the signal of the communication, the signal of the radio waves that make up the packets of data that are being transmitted, divided by other stuff that's on the frequency. other stuff that's on the channel. When you use a narrower channel, there's a narrower range of other stuff. So it naturally makes the noise level lower. When you have a wider channel, the noise level is naturally higher. And because of the nature of OFDM and OFDMA technology, the way those technologies work, they are what we call spread spectrum technologies. Those technologies kind of spread the radio frequency signal from the center of the channel across to the edges of the channel. And because of the nature of this spreading, the wider the channel, the more susceptible the communication is to noise. You know, when the client device is receiving something from the access point, because of the way the OFDM and OFDMA technologies work in terms of how they spread out across the channel, across channel 149 or across the narrower channel if you're using OFDMA, because of the way that spreading works, for the client to be able to receive that data, for the client to be able to hear that signal and have a high enough SNR, a wider channel is more susceptible to noise. Sort of, you know, let's say you have a given noise source. Let's say your noise source is someone's Bluetooth keyboard. Someone has a Bluetooth keyboard, they're using it, you know, on a wire in an area where there's Wi-Fi. That Bluetooth keyboard is going to have more of an effect if you're using a wider channel. Less of an effect if you're using a narrower channel. Even though the Bluetooth keyboard is still transmitting with the same power level, it's still transmitting from the same place, it's not moving anywhere. Just the nature of OFDM and OFDMA, and you know, OFDM, that's a technology that is used in Wi-Fi 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. OFDMA, that's the one that splits channels up. That's the technology that is only used in Wi-Fi 6. So these are the two technologies used in Wi-Fi. And with both of those technologies, a wider channel means more susceptibility to noise. And this is a ratio. So if noise is higher, that means for communication to be successful, signal better be higher. And, you know, there's sometimes there are limits on how high you can get your signal level. And so that's a big advantage that OFDMA has when you use a narrower channel, less noise. And so theoretically, the same signal level will potentially be able to work with a narrower channel, even if it couldn't work with a wider channel. Because again, the wider channel is more susceptible to noise, and signal to noise ratio is what determines whether Wi-Fi is successful. And so those are the two big advantages. And so if you kind of look at what this all means here, for MIMO and for MU-MIMO, I would just call these kind of general performance improvements. Doesn't matter what your environment is. You have a home Wi-Fi network with a dozen devices connected, maybe 2 or 3 devices that are, you know, active at the most at one time. And I don't mean just active with small amounts of data, but active, like seriously active, lots of data at the same time. And what I'm doing here, you know, this is kind of my summary, because we're already at the 90-minute mark, actually. And I try to keep these things to 90 minutes or less. So if I were to summarize with MU-MIMO, it's just a general performance improvement. I got a home network with a dozen devices. I've got 1 or 2 or 3 devices that is seriously active at any given moment in time. And, you know, simultaneously, I don't have more than 2 or 3 devices active. MU-MIMO is going to help me. If I have a football stadium with 60,000 people, and let's say maybe 5,000 of those devices are active at any given moment, MU-MIMO or MIMO is going to help me. If I have a K through 12, if I have higher education, if I have warehouses, if I have retail location, no matter what it is, MU-MIMO and MIMO can help. Because MU-MIMO and MIMO are just all about spectral efficiency. They're all about saying you take the same exact channel, but now you can get 2 packets at once, or 4 packets, or actually MU-MIMO can go all the way up to 8 packets. So it's just better spectral efficiency. It's just kind of a general performance improvement. Great thing to have. Always a good thing to have MU-MIMO. Always a good thing to have MIMO. MU-MIMO, again, is a little bit newer thing. We don't know how much of a performance improvement that's going to give us. With OFDMA, though, it's a little bit different. OFDMA is something that is more so specifically designed for environments where mobility is an issue or where you're dealing with higher density of clients. Do I care if I have Wi-Fi 6 at home? No. Wi-Fi 6 at home isn't going to give me a big performance improvement compared to Wi-Fi 5. I may get some level of improvement on the margins with Wi-Fi 6 at home compared to Wi-Fi 5, okay? But I'm not getting a significant improvement from non-OFDMA to OFDMA for a network where there's not a lot of mobility. You know, I'm sitting on my couch, I'm sitting at my desk, I'm in the kitchen, I'm in the bedroom, wherever, but I'm not doing a lot of moving around while I'm using the Wi-Fi. I have, again, maybe a dozen devices, maybe 2 or 3 are active simultaneously at any given moment. I'm not going to get a big I might get a slight improvement with Wi-Fi 6. I'm not going to get a big improvement at home. K through 12, probably not a big improvement. Most of the Wi-Fi use is going to be stationary. You don't have as many concerns about keeping people connected while they're walking through the hallway. What really matters is that all of the students' tablets or laptops or Chromebooks or whatever they are inside the classroom can get connected simultaneously. You're not in a true sort of high density environment. You might have a maximum of 35 laptops or tablets per classroom. If you're able to do an access. Now, look, I get it. If you're in a school district with serious budgetary limitations and you can't just make it simple and put an access point in every classroom, then yeah, maybe OFDMA might help you a little bit there. But it's you know, K through 12, probably not going to make a big difference. Home Wi-Fi, probably not going to make a big difference. Most offices, probably not going to make a big difference. You know, just the density's not there. The mobility needs aren't really there for Wi-Fi 6 to make this dramatic impact on the end user's experience. But in some environments, you know, you want to set up a football stadium, you want to set up a basketball arena, you want to set up, you know, the area where students are going to gather on campus for your commencement celebration, and you're going to have, you know, 20,000 people all gathered in a relatively tight space. That's the type of density where Wi-Fi 6 could make a humongous difference. High mobility areas. You got a big warehouse where people are moving around all the time on segways and, you know, golf carts and hoverboards, getting packages, doing various things, needing to stay connected while they're on the move. I don't know, if you decide to, you know, set up Wi-Fi at a golf course or something like that. People are driving around, walking around while they're trying to use Wi-Fi. Then in these areas, I would say yes. Having the narrower channel, being able to reduce the noise to make it so that mobile applications can hopefully work a little bit better. Be able to divide up those channels, allow more client devices on the same channel at the same time to hopefully make the experience of using various applications in a high density environment a little bit better. That's where you're likely to see the bigger improvements. So those are kind of the differences, I would say, between those technologies. You know, again, MIMO, that's been available with Wi-Fi 4 and 5. MU-MIMO, that's available with Wi-Fi 5, although again, there are questions about, you know, how big or how well it's going to work, both in Wi-Fi 5 and actually, I should say, you know, also available in Wi-Fi 6 with both these technologies. OFDMA, that's Wi-Fi 6 only. And admittedly, Wi-Fi 6 also has some questions about exactly how it's going to work in the real world. It's just, you know, not been deployed widely enough yet to know that. But I would say it's like with MIMO or MU-MIMO, no brainer. It's just a general performance improvement. No matter the environment you're in, the channel gets used a little bit more efficiently by the devices that can support MIMO or MU-MIMO. Simple as that. It's like, okay, use it if you can use it. It may not be a problem if you don't have MU-MIMO. It may not be a problem if you don't have a certain number of streams, if you just have some MIMO but not a higher number of streams. Not saying it's going to be a problem if those things are the case, but it's a general performance improvement. For OFDMA, on a home network, I don't see a high likelihood of it improving things. Typical office, don't see a high likelihood of it improving things. K through 12, don't see a high likelihood of it improving things. It's for mobility, it's for higher and when I say high density, I'm not talking about 30 devices, 50 devices per wireless access point. That's not high density. I'm talking about when you get environments where people are kind of like shoulder to shoulder, so to speak. Think like an auditorium. Think like a big conference keynote where people are standing or sitting kind of shoulder to shoulder. Think of a big sporting event where people are standing or sitting shoulder to shoulder. And not just shoulder to shoulder, but like numbers in the hundreds or likely in the thousands. That's where we start to get true high density. And so in those environments, if you have those environments, high mobility, higher density, then OFDMA should be a big help to those environments by having those narrower channels. So that's the talk there about the similarities, the differences between the two. I think both are great Wi-Fi technologies. Both are good, viable Wi-Fi. Look, if someone today texted me and said, Ben, I got a free, Wi-Fi 6 wireless router for you to use at home rather than the Wi-Fi 5 wireless router you currently have, I'd probably use it. There might be some improvement on the margins for Wi-Fi, for OFDMA, even in a home environment, even in some type of residential environment. Let me go back to the little chart here. The other thing that I didn't really mention is the fact that the access point controls the channel with OFDMA. But yeah, so there might be some kind of improvement there in the home environment. Or if I was setting up an office, if I was doing, consulting for a client of some type, and they're deciding, do we want to use these Wi-Fi 5 access points or Wi-Fi 6 access points? And they said, don't worry about budget. We don't mind spending a few $100 extra per access point. I'd say, why not? Use Wi-Fi 6. What if you have a situation where mobility's, is a little bit different than the typical office today, or density is a little bit different than the typical office today? Who knows? So I'm not opposing Wi-Fi 6. I'm just saying, definitely mobility and high density are the environments where I would expect to see the big gains. That's going to wrap it up for me. Went a little bit long today. I pretty much go longer than I intend to every week. And yeah, Slim, I think that is a good call to do some captures. I have a capture here that I wanted to share with you guys. I know I'm going a little bit long, but I guess since I've already gone long, I'll share with you a little bit. So this is a capture that I did outdoors here in Los Angeles. There's a Wi-Fi network set up by cable companies to allow people to connect to the Wi-Fi networks. And I was looking at it last week under the guise of security. This was the network I was connecting to, this network with the little plus, if you look over towards the right-hand column. And I can tell that this network supports security because I see RSN. RSN stands for Robust Security Networks. That means that there is encryption, there is authentication on this network here. That's something that that I was looking at last week. That stream is in the archive. If you want to look at the archive here on my Twitch page, you can look at it. All archives stay up for 2 weeks on Twitch. If you want to look at my YouTube channel, you can also look at it there. Again, I gotta get the address for my own YouTube channel. It was set up long ago. I don't exactly remember the specific address for the channel. I need to get better with this type of stuff. But yeah, that was kind of something that we were looking at last week. But this week, we can also see some information about MIMO and about channel width here. So what I did was I imported this scan into Wi-Fi Explorer. Wi-Fi Explorer is a scanner from Adrian Granados. I'm using Wi-Fi Explorer Pro. It is a $100 application. $100 isn't the most expensive. To be honest with you, if you're going to spend $100 on something Wi-Fi related, this is the first thing I'd get. If you're a Mac user, this is a Mac only application. But if you're a Mac user, this is definitely the first thing I'd get if I was, if I was given a budget of $100 to spend on Wi-Fi. If you look at this here, let me bring it up so I can kind of scroll through it. So here's my little Plus network. One of the really nice things is, there's all this information that I can get about it. So I can get the signal strength. I can get which channel it was on. So it's using a 40 megahertz wide channel. It looks like channel 157 is the primary channel. Channel 161 is also used. Would use 40 megahertz with channel 157. That means it gets paired with channel 161. But one of the nice things about Wi-Fi Explorer is it breaks down the beacon frame for you. So you don't even need to open Wireshark. You don't need to kind of understand how packet captures work. If you can just run this Wi-Fi Explorer application, you can see this information. And so it shows me a little bit about it. You can see it right here where it says HT capabilities. It tells me that 2 streams are used. So this uses 2 stream MIMO. That's what this access point supports. So in this case, this is an access point that really doesn't even need MU-MIMO. This access point is just using 2 spatial streams. My laptop, my smartphone are 2 spatial streams. So, it doesn't even need MU-MIMO. With MIMO, the access point is only capable of sending 2 packets at the same time over channel 157. And so I don't even need MU-MIMO in this case. Now, if you had an access point that said it supported 4 streams, 8 streams, some larger number of streams, then sure, then it's gonna potentially mean that you'd want to have more, you'd want to have MU-MIMO supported in your client devices as well as your access points. And then as far as OFDMA goes, you can see that 40 megahertz is the width of the channel. In fact, it mentions it up at the top here in the channel width column as well. 40 megahertz. Well, actually, you can't exactly see channel width. Give me just a second here to get rid of these annotations so you can see it. Now, if you look towards the right, you can see 40 megahertz as the channel width. And when you see a 40 megahertz wide channel, if we were using OFDMA would allow this access point to maybe use 18 megahertz to transmit to one device and use 8.5 megahertz to transmit to another device and 4 megahertz to transmit to another and 2 megahertz each for 2 other devices. So you could have several devices that were all transmitting or receiving with the access point at the same time over this 40 megahertz range. So that's that's something that you would get with OFDMA. Now, I can tell by looking at this capture here that OFDMA is not supported and MU-MIMO is not supported. I can see MIMO supported because it says spatial streams, but when you see the little HT, hopefully you can see that over there kind of towards the middle where it's highlighted, it says HT capabilities. HT means 802.11n, and 802.11n does not support MU-MIMO. If we look at other networks, there's one. This one says VHT. VHT means 802.11ac is supported. So VHT means 802.11ac. 802.11ac doesn't guarantee MU-MIMO. It's not assured that you're able to use MU-MIMO. I'm trying to remember where in the beacon it indicates if MU-MIMO is supported. It might be under VHT capabilities. There we go. Multi-user beamformer capable. So these two right here. So if this were to say yes, if these little numbers over on the left were ones instead of zeros, notice over there to the left, kind of in green, there's a little 0 instead of a 1. If those said ones instead of zeros, then that would mean MU-MIMO is available. I don't think there's going to be anything that supports MU-MIMO. I mean, I guess maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, no MU-MIMO here. Let's see if any of these indicate MU-MIMO support. Nope, no MU-MIMO support here. So no MU-MIMO. And then if you want to see if, let me collapse these. And if you want to see if 802.11ax is supported, if you want to see if Wi-Fi 6 is supported when you're using Wi-Fi Explorer or Wi-Fi Explorer Pro, you'd be looking for HE. HE or high efficiency is what you would be looking for. Let's see. And yeah, I see Bruce there. Yeah, thank you, Bruce. Much appreciated there. And yeah, Bruce mentioning that Adrian's going to get more granular with columns. Okay, that's great news. Thank you, Bruce. Bruce is the Brew Joe Wi-Fi. Bruce's hockey team is better than mine this year. So Bruce, I'm a little bit bitter about that, but you know, I actually watch a decent amount of the Bruins because they're just a really good team. And my beloved LA Kings, those of you that don't care about hockey probably don't care a lick about what I'm talking about right now, of course. But my LA Kings are not as good. There's a game tonight. We play one of the other teams that's at kind of the bottom of the table, bottom of the standings. We play Ottawa tonight. I'm actually excited about that one because there's a really good young American hockey player who plays for Ottawa. Ottawa is the capital of Canada, of course, for those of you that may not be from North America, may not be aware of that. And yeah, so I am excited for that, but yeah, Bruce is exactly. Tuukka is the name of the goaltender for Boston hockey team, Boston Bruins hockey team. He's been outstanding this year. Bruce was the first one several years ago that alerted me to a guy named David Pasternak. And Pasta he's been one of the best players in hockey, maybe the best player in hockey this year. So they're having a very good year. My beloved LA Kings are not, but hopefully we're getting back there. The problem is we haven't been drafting Pasta. You know, if we would have been drafting and acquiring good players to supplement our old, you know, that's what Boston's done is they have these older guys, but they've kind of refreshed and brought in a bunch of good younger players. We weren't able to get in a lot of good younger players. A lot of our younger players have struggled or whatever. And so disappointing, but that's okay. Yeah, Bruce also mentioning Canada struggling with the playoffs. Yes. And yeah, you know, as far as the Wi-Fi 4, 5, 6, it's under generation here. I just added off the screen, but yeah, so it does show Wi-Fi 4 and 5. And then there's the separate one for mode. So yeah, that is something that it shows there. I probably just should have showed that right from the get-go. But so you can tell if Wi-Fi 4, Wi-Fi 5, Wi-Fi 6 is supported. And what Bruce is mentioning, it sounds like the application is going to get more granular. Maybe MU-MIMO support will be in here. I'm just looking through very, very quickly. I'm not seeing MU-MIMO in here, but I'm seeing mobility domain. So that's good. But yeah, so yeah, thank you for joining, everyone. Appreciate the kind comments, Bruce, as always. And oh, that would be nice. iPhone support would be fantastic. I would love to be able to pull this up on the iPhone. You know, Bruce, you know what nationality Tuukka is? Tuukka Rask. For those of you that may not be hockey fans, R-A-S-K. I am thinking you probably know the nationality of Tuukka. Not 100% sure. Flexible field selection. Yeah, that. Oh, gotcha. To put that into columns. That would be nice. Yeah. So, you know, there's a little bit of delay from what I can see. So, yeah, so Bruce knows fish. You know what I got here? Licorice vodka from Finland, courtesy of one of our favorite Finns, Jussi Kiveniemi of Mist Networks. And so since you even though it's too early to drink alcohol here in Los Angeles, it is well after 5 p.m. in the UK and in other areas of the world. As Jimmy Buffett, controversial opinions on Jimmy Buffett out there. Some love him, some hate him. But as Jimmy Buffett says, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. I think that was Jimmy Buffett. But yeah, cheers to Tuukka Rask and the Finns. All right, let's wrap it up while I go to the emergency room from from drinking this stuff. I joke, and I think UC gave this to me as a joke. Here's the brand if you ever want to look it up. But I actually like this stuff. I'm a big licorice fan. I don't drink vodka, but I am a big fan of licorice, and I will drink other alcohol from time to time. And so I actually like this a lot. It's definitely small doses. It's definitely not something to have a lot of. Yeah, exactly. It's that anise licorice taste. And so yeah, I do actually recommend this stuff. Maybe not at 11:52 a.m., but that's how it goes. Okay. Have a good one all, and I will be back. I might be back Friday. I really need to get that second stream going each week, so hoping I can carve out some time Friday afternoon. What I'm targeting, hopefully 1 week, will be 3 p.m. Pacific time on Friday. If not, I will be back definitely next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. See y'all later.